Welcome to Valley Newsline, Election Special. I'm your host, Ron Whitlock. As the Texas governor's race is coming to a final conclusion, it occurred to me that throughout this year, I have managed to capture for interviews Democrat candidate Chris Bell, Independent candidate Carol Keaton Strayhorn, and get a few questions of Texas Governor Rick Perry at his various events. Independent Kinky Friedman, on the other hand, has yet to appear before Valley Newsline's cameras. Well, let's now do something about that. Introducing my first interview with the humorist on the back patio of his Austin home. Kinky, welcome to the program.
Pleasure to be here.
Texas debate of the governor's candidates recently held. The governor decided he wanted to ask a question of Kinky Friedman.
And again, this is intended to be a question for the candidate you're addressing. We're going now to Governor Perry. 20 seconds for a question to independent candidate Carol Keaton Strayhorn.
Actually, I think I'm going over here.
Oh, you're exactly right.
Mr. Friedman.
Mr. Friedman.
Mr. Friedman. We've heard you talk a bit about some interesting subjects like Willie fuel and biodiesel, ethanol, but anyway, I'd like to really hear what your long-term vision is and your plan for a state that is growing at a tremendous rate, and how we're going to be an energy-dependent state
Time for the question,
in the future.
now, sir.
Well, Governor, we're importing energy for the first time in Texas history right now. We need to emphasize things like biodiesel. The reason I want Willie Nelson to head this up is because he can have all the farmers, co-ops, biodiesel and ethanol co-ops all across the state and make it available to people. I would put 35,000 school buses in biodiesel. I'm tired of following the American parade. I'd like to lead this parade. We can do it in terms of renewable fuels, solar and wind power. There's no question. This is the way of the future, and we need to jump in front of this parade in something. Wouldn't it be nice to be number one in something besides executions, toll roads, property taxes, and dropouts? And we're running out of dinosaur wine. This makes infinite good sense to me, and that's what I would do is push for biodiesel, ethanol, everything, any way we could get it.
Governor, you have 30 seconds to
Mr.
respond.
Freeman, I'm glad you brought it up about being number one, because the state of Texas is the number one wind generating state in the nation. I was proud to announce this last week a $10 billion infrastructure development in wind that will continue to keep Texas going forward and giving us the diversity and the ability to bring down electric rates in the future. So it's going to take a lot of different types of energy in the future, and we have been leading the charge in that in the state of Texas over these last 6 years.
Time has expired.
So, he throws the question to you, and what did you think at that moment? Did you realize that he saw you as his number one challenger to occupy the governor's mansion for another term?
Not at the time. At the time, I was just going through a baptism by fire, getting through the debate, which I found to be a real charade. And I don't think much enlightenment was delivered, and I felt like an honest man in a den of thieves. And when I'm being lectured on morality by this man standing next to me in a $5,000 suit about words can be hurtful to people. This is the man who said adios, mofo, to the reporter. And this is the guy
on the commercial by Tony Sanchez.
That's right. No, not on the commercial. This is when
he said it, but it was replayed through the television.
No, that was after Tony Sanchez. What Sanchez played was a video of him chewing out a female highway patrol officer in pretty rude language. And so I don't, let's not throw stones. Let's not sit in judgment of Kinky here. And I think the reason they're picking on me is because I'm the one who's carrying the ball. And I think the governor is still a yell leader like he was at A&M. He's on the sidelines.
Well, during the debate, for those of you who may have seen it, those who did not, we'll run that clip of what Kinky said.
What Stinky said.
You heard Mr. Friedman's definition of politics, where he describes those involved as parasites. Unfortunately, I think too often Mr. Friedman sees it as a joke.
Independent Kinky Friedman.
Sure, everybody's ganging up on me here, and they're trying to tackle the guy who's carrying the ball. Rick is still on the sidelines. He's the yell leader. I'm taking the heat, and I don't mind doing it because he's got no immigration policy, and that's the truth. And he's got no help to the law enforcement in Houston, Texas, because he doesn't want people to think that you know, he might offend somebody. That's the problem with politicians. They're afraid to offend anybody. As far as I'm concerned, I'm a realist about this. Wherever the trouble is, that's where I go.
So you said they were picking on you, and obviously anyone who watched the entire debate, everybody was picking on Kinky Friedman.
That's right.
An independent candidate whose candidacy is a joke.
That's right.
But they're all picking on Kinky Friedman.
That's right. Well, it tells us only one thing, and you hit the nail on the head. It does tell us that the poll numbers must be shocking somebody, and they all have their own pollsters that do this. We don't, but they know, and I believe the Democrats now know that they can't win with us in the race, and that we're taking lots of their liberal votes away, and we're also taking lots of Rick Perry's conservative votes. So we like to keep them confused, you know, if we can.
Now, recently we appeared at a news conference on the banks of the Rio Grande with Secretary Michael Chertoff and United States Senator Kay Bailey Hutchison, and we asked both of those individuals what they thought about the fact that the Rio Grande Valley in South Texas is the most vulnerable as it relates to terrorist attack, because out of the Rio Grande River, which that's the sole water source for South Texas, about 1 million people plus on the American side, it's only secure on the U.S. side. The other side is secured by a Mexican military. To a degree, as we understand, some of those law enforcement and military officials can be bought to do whatever that's been known to occur, of course. And so my question to Secretary Chertoff was, Secretary Chertoff, the air you're breathing 3 minutes ago was Mexican air. Somebody doesn't have to come to America, get beyond a fence or wall, swim a river, get beyond a border patrolman to attack America. Put something in the water, America's been attacked.
This is a bigger issue. The issue is called immigration in general. And we have no immigration policy, Ron. So what you're talking about is one aspect of it, the terrorism aspect, the fact that the borders are not secure. We have no immigration policy because the politicians, and I'm not picking on Rick Perry exclusively, but he's one of them, are afraid of offending people. And the people they don't want to offend are the Hispanics. And the reason they don't want to offend them is because they're afraid they're going to vote Democratic. He's thinking along party lines here. And what these candidates and politicians are thinking about clearly is the next election. And what you're talking about deals with the next generation. And it's important. And you remember 4 months ago, every politician in America was so upset about the illegals over here. Boy, everyone had a bee in their bonnet. They're taking over America. Look at these marches of Hispanics, 11 million illegals in this country. Well, look at the legislation they've managed to produce. Zero, nothing. Not a thing out of Washington, not a thing out of Austin. And that's probably a Republican dirty trick right there. My goal is to do the right thing for the people of Texas. That's what a good shepherd should do. A hired hand doesn't do that. I'm saying that Rick Perry is a hired hand. He has become one. And by being a hired hand, he's looking at the next job. You know, he's thinking he's going to be Vice President Perry right now. He's thinking of a big house in Washington. He's not even, who knows if he's even going to finish his term or not, if he wins.
You're telling me you think he's abandoned his ag roots?
Oh, totally. We went up to the Panhandle, we went up to McLean, there, Gray County, and the stories we heard, the people all said, this guy, this governor, who's an Aggie, and a former, what was he, a ag commissioner, went up there for what amounted to a photo op. And that was the worst natural disaster to hit Texas in modern times, was that firestorm, where not only was the paint gone from your pickup truck in 1 second, but more than 25,000 animals died. These are all hardworking people. These are not the Katrina evacuees, who he spent a lot of time and a lot of money on. But he turned his back on the Panhandle, and I contend because there's no votes up there. And that's what the people there think, too.
Governor Perry, Operation Linebacker, his initiative for border security. Operation Rio Grande, his initiative for border security in the Rio Grande Valley. What would you do if elected on election day as the next governor of Texas to provide security for agriculture and for the municipalities in South Texas on the Rio Grande?
Well, for starters, I would not do what the governor has done, which is put 1,500 National Guardsmen down there finally. with, as we understand it, no ammo. They may have some ammo, but most of them have no ammo. And they got no authority to detain an illegal if they see something suspicious. And I'm not worried about a guy running through a field. I am worried about what you're worried about. I'm worried about terrorism, and I'm worried about crime syndicates, the big guys. And you talk to any sheriff in Texas, I'll tell you the same thing. Things are getting worse and worse and worse. What I would do is appoint in general the very best people that I can find, which saying that as an independent is a lot different than a Republican or a Democrat. I don't care if you're Ann Richards or you're Rick Perry, you're going to appoint the best Democrats or the best Republicans, usually the ones that gave your party the most money. This is a real opportunity, a time for choosing, because we can go to people that Perry hasn't even bothered to speak to, who know a lot about the border. And I'm not an authority on the border. I mean, I was for the fence on the border.
You're a rancher in the hill country.
Yeah, I am, but I've been all over the state.
How many acres do you ranch?
400.
400 acres. Yeah. Reminding you that if you missed the only debate of this gubernatorial race, you missed a good one.
And it wasn't, and it's Rick Perry's fault that you missed it, if it's just one debate, because he did it on Texas OU weekend, and he cowardly crawfished out of at least 5, maybe 6 opportunities to debate, and that's at a time when we're trying to spread democracy around the world. And Jesse Ventura told me he did 16 debates in Minnesota. I mean, that's at least all you can expect out of a guy who's been in office for 6 years to stand up and defend what he's done and explain it to us if he can. He wouldn't do it.
Now, you've indicated to me you're very concerned about the TTC project because of the 500,000 acres of ag land predominantly that's going to be taken by this Trans-Texas corridor system, taken out of ranch land, taken out of farmland, taken out of other residential and other land, obviously, but predominantly the agriculture community being impacted on. Why are you concerned about that?
I'm not so concerned particularly about the corridor is a terrible idea. I have yet to meet one Texan who thinks it's a good idea. I haven't met one yet, Ron. You might be the one, you know, but I don't think you are. The problem we got is that we are so infiltrated with lobbyists and politicians who are robbing us with fountain pens right now that any project they do, even if it's a good one, will never be implemented the way it should be. That's why.
But Kinky, we've got to be concerned about the economy. We're an international economy. We've got to move products from Mexico through the United States, through Texas, all the way to the marketplace. That Trans-Texas corridor would provide a vehicle for all of this train traffic, all of this truck traffic, to NAFTA and CAFTA and move this commerce through the state of Texas and compete with China.
Bad idea. It would expedite drug smuggling. That's about what it would do. The major cities of Texas have no access to the plan, as I understand it right now. I don't want to pay this money to a Spanish corporation. I don't even want toll roads in Texas. And we can do whatever we want, folks. We can't get a free ride, okay? But if we're ready to pay more in a gas tax, if we bring in legalized casino gambling, there's lots of ways to do this, none of which leap to mind. One that doesn't leap to mind is the big road. Stop the big road, and the way you stop that is stop Governor Perry.
A while back, I asked Texas gubernatorial candidate Chris Bell and former Republican, current independent Carol Keaton Strayhorn about current Texas health care issues and the crisis in Texas. Here's what Chris Bell had to say.
Here in the South Texas area, we need to be doing everything that possible to bring more medical professionals into this area. You can't look at the fastest growing area and see that it's so medically underserved and realize that that's not that's not a crisis in the making if it's not already. But I also think obviously we're going to have to deal with the problem of the uninsured, and we can't just sit back and wait for the federal government to do something about it.
Now, what Carol Keaton Strayhorn says about CHIP, Children's Health Insurance, and the Children's Health Insurance Program.
This is actually one heartbroken, Grandma, that we've not fully funded children's health insurance. That's unconscionable. We've taken a challenge for the state and created a crisis for the cities. I tell you what I want to do. I want to pay $98 a month, and I've been talking about this for years, but I would much rather pay $98 a month and insure that kid with prescription drugs rather than pay $6,700 for one hospital stay for that kid, picked up by the local property taxes. They're going right through the roof. You know, it's just unconscionable. We have got to put children first.
Now, if you're elected on November 7th to be the next occupant of the governor's mansion, move from this home here in Northwest Austin, what would you do to try and get these federal dollars flowing back to South Texas?
Well, for one thing, I would do everything the governor is not doing. I think there's something more important than being politically correct. It's being morally correct. Morally correct means you look out for the kids that don't have health insurance, for the elderly, for mentally retarded, mentally ill people, and the people that devote their lives to this kind of stuff. You could throw the vets in with that too, by the way. Anybody who is either down in their luck or unfortunate through no circumstances of their own, the disabled, the people that devote their lives to them and help them have not been helped by this state at all. And we need to work with these people. We've got a plan, by the way, and it's modeled after Minnesota. Minnesota, you know, Jesse Ventura campaigned with us, so people make fun of him, you know, he's a professional wrestler. He helped architect a plan that's made Minnesota #1 in health care coverage. #1. You know where Texas ranks, Ron, in health care coverage? You want to guess? It's an easy one. 50th. We're 50th. So here's the suggestion, here's the idea. We take Texas Care, modeled on the Minnesota plan. All it is a 1% surcharge for medical procedures. 1% surcharge to hospitals, 1% surcharge to insurance companies every time there's a medical procedure. This creates a health access fund. That's the health access fee, the 1%. And the fund is a floating fund that has covered insurance for every man, woman, and child, rich or poor, in Minnesota for the past 6 years and made them #1. They've been #1, I think, for 5 or 6 years now. We get Texas Care rolling here, and we might have a chance to save things. As it is, they tried to privatize it. They've tried everything they can. But frankly, as long as you got crooks in there, and as long as you got people who are more interested in filling their own pockets and stuffing cash down their pants from the Trans-Texas Corridor and the privatized health programs, you're not going to have much happening. So go with Texas Care and appoint people who don't care about the Crips or the Bloods, but who love Texas.
Thank you for coming and appearing with us.
It's great to be here.
On the program. Kinky, it's the first time we've met you here on this occasion.
How do you like me so far?
I'm still kind of trying to.
You have your doubts?
I have my doubts, but you've got a good smile. Independent candidacies. Jesse Ventura wins against the Humphrey and Mondale factions. Two, the biggest names in Minnesota, Mondale, Humphrey. Ventura takes them on. Plurality election, just like one in Texas, and he wins the governor's mansion in the state of Minnesota. Just surprised everybody in the entire United States of America. Do you think there's a move afoot, there's an attitude on the part of Texans and people of the United States that the polarization of the two-party system has got to change? There's got to be some more independent voting going on in the polls.
Absolutely. There's the two parties, there's an arrogance about the two-party system. They think these votes belong to them. Well, they don't belong to them at all. They tell people that you waste your vote if you vote for Kinky because he's an independent. If you vote your heart and you vote your conscience, you never waste your vote. You can't waste your vote. And in America, this time, there's 75% of the people wanted to throw all the bums out of Washington in a poll 2 weeks ago. And that was before the Mark Foley thing blew up. It's probably 95% now. People don't like politicians. You know my definition of politicians. A poly means more than one. Politics. Poly means more than one, and ticks are blood-sucking parasites. And this is true. The politicians have got the train of Texas in the ditch. And don't expect Grandma or Perry or Bell, who've been in power for 89 years. They've been involved in politics 89 years, 3 people. Don't expect them to get the train back on the track. It's got to be us. It's got to be the people of Texas.
Now, we have gone to the governor's mansion, and during the tour, Texas Governor Rick Perry shared with us the candlesticks that former governor, current president George Bush left there when he left the governor's mansion to go to the White House. What do you intend to take from this home to the governor's mansion of elected governor by the people on Election Day, November 7th?
You didn't see a pool table there, did you? We're putting one in. And also, it's going to be the people's mansion, the people's house. It's going to be more like an Andrew Jackson type of era, where you actually get to see the governor, where the governor will have a listed phone number. You can talk to him yourself during certain hours every day. And that's what I've really got. That's my big beef with Perry. He's out of touch with the people. He's not close to the people. Maybe he was once. He's not anymore.
This is the last question. Now, if you're elected Texas governor, you occupy the governor's mansion, you move from this home, you go over there, you set up house, you have barbecues, you bring in your pool table, whatever it is you got.
Listed phone number.
Listed phone number, all these kind of things. You get in there, you're elected, now you're a politician. You're going to run for re-election if you get elected. You're one-term governors.
Right.
If elected, you're one term and you're out of there. You're not going to be re-elected. You're not going to run again. You're not going to be convinced to run again.
No,
is that what you're telling me?
My motto is never re-elect anybody.
Including Kinky Friedman.
I've got 4 years to fix some of these things. I think I can do it, and I think I can do it with the people of Texas. And that's all George Washington said politics needed. Common sense and common honesty. That's all I'm bringing you.
Having heard independent Texas gubernatorial candidate for Governor Kinky Friedman's views on some subjects, we now take you on a short sit-down with incumbent Texas Governor Rick Perry, responding to some of what issues Kinky brought up.
Governor, thank you for your time on the campaign trail. Governor Kinky Friedman is critical of you of taking farm and ranch land out of productivity by use by the TTC in Trans-Texas Corridor. Your response to his criticism?
Well, first and foremost, the state of Texas is growing probably as fast as any state in the nation. We're going to have to build infrastructure. We're going to have pipelines to carry natural gas, water, electricity. All of those right-of-ways over the next 50 years are going to take up a lot of agricultural production. One of the reasons that we came up with the Trans-Texas Corridor concept was so that only one time and in a substantially less intrusive manner, buy that right-of-way, put all of those lines into place to carry all of those natural resources along with our transportation infrastructure, and you will see substantially less agricultural land taken out of production with the Trans-Texas Corridor than with the system that we've got in place, where we kind of haphazardly, as people decide to put a pipeline across your property or a power line across your property. So it'll save a lot of money, save a lot of heartache, and it'll save a lot of agricultural land in the long run.
So your comment means this would be consolidated into one location as opposed to multiple easements through farm and ranch land. It would be one easement through farm and ranch land.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Are you worried about the Kinky Friedman campaign by, at the debate, dodging the question or determining you wanted to ask him a question as opposed to Carol Strayhorn a question? Does that mean you consider him the biggest threat to your campaign and maybe
anybody that's on the ticket in the election, we consider to be a legitimate candidate, whether it's Chris Bell or Carol Rylander, Strayhorn, or Kinky Friedman, or Mr. Warner, the Libertarian. They're all
a plurality election.
They're all legitimate candidates. You know, I think anyone who's had a historical perch and watched what's happened in the last 25, 30, 40 years in Texas realize the election is going to be between the Republican and the Democrat. There could be a spoiler out there in one of the independents, but the fact is the Republican and the Democrat is always where the race has been. I will suggest to you that's where the race is now.
Kinky Friedman tells us he will, if elected, be a one-term governor. He says nobody should run to be reelected, and a voter should never elect somebody for reelection.
Well,
your reaction?
The people of the state of Texas are the ones that make that decision. I'm going to suggest he's going to be a no-term governor.
Thank you for viewing our special on the Texas governor's race. Now, please don't forget to vote on November the 7th. For whomever wins this unusual race, it is guaranteed to be an historic one. Till next time, adios.
Yeah.
Boy, what
do you want?
Good grief, Kinky. You need a door. You need a door.
We don't want any.
I'm just free. We're not trying to sell Avon. We're not selling anything. We're trying to give you some free fruit from Rio Grande Valley. This is Rio Star Ruby Red Grapefruit from South Texas. Now, when we came to the governor's mansion, brought it to Governor Perry, his wife Anita, First Lady of the state of Texas, gift wrapped, nice pretty box. We don't want to get too highfalutin. We don't want to get too highfalutin for you.
We want to thank you, and may the God of your choice bless you. Thank you very much.
You're not going to let us. Oh, come on. Okay. All right. Okay.